Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, another special edition of the Terrible Podcast, Pittsburgh Steelers Training Camp 2024. I am Dave Bryan from SteelersDepot.com, and today is Sunday, August the 11th, 2024. It is 8:19 Eastern Time in the PM. I am joined by the one, the only Alex Kozora, once again, fresh off yet another trip out to Saint Vincent College in Latrobe. And we're going to talk about what he observed at training camp practice, the team's first practice since their Friday night preseason opener against the Houston Texans. Alex, happy Sunday. It feels like Monday.
It feels like any day that ends in Y. They all run together at this portion of training camp. At the last weekend practice, great weather, good practice overall, lighter day with the team out of pads. Maybe be in pads there Monday, Wednesday. But yeah, after this, there's 2 days of camp left. So we're almost at the end of this thing.
Yeah, they got to practice, Monday, off Tuesday, practice Wednesday, and then the closed session is a scrimmage, I believe, on Thursday at Acrisure against the Buffalo Bills. So we're on the backside of this now. All right, Alex, as we do, opening up every special edition of the Terrible Podcast Training Camp Editions, a shout out to our sponsor, and that would be Touring Plans, touringplans.com. Tell the folks about Touring Plans.
Yeah, longtime sponsor of our Steelers Depot training camp coverage. And so we thank Touring Plans and Len Testa for their continued support. Touring Plans is the best place to book your upcoming trip, whether it's to Disney World, Disneyland, or even the Disney Cruise Line. With Touring Plans, you'll get access to things like their crowd calendar to know days and times when the park is the busiest to avoid those crazy groups and just swarms of people, plans to avoid how to wait in line for a ride for hours, insider restaurant reviews, how to save money on tickets, and just overall the tips to have the best possible experience, again, for Disney World, Disneyland, or the Disney Cruise Line. So if you're planning on booking a trip to any of those places later this year, reach out to touringplans.com and tell them Steelers Depot sent you.
Absolutely. Please do. All right. I'll do the first half of the housekeeping here, being as I'll have it pulled up in front of me, the transactions, and I'll let you do the second half of the long list of injuries. That way I don't tire you out here. So we roll all the way back to the weekend here. Outside linebacker Marcus Golden up and surprisingly retired, and the team placed him on the reserve retired list. And we hardly got to, we didn't see him at all. I think even that explains maybe him missing that practice before the game. There you couldn't find him. So Marcus Golden has retired, and he's on the reserve retired list there. That's the starter. Second, the team, and Alex, you said this was coming. Cordell Patterson passed his physical, and he has been removed from the active NFI list, and he is now back. I don't think he did much today. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but he's back ready to get after it again. So that's good news there. The team also took Dean Lowry off the active PUP list earlier today. So good news there. Another thing that you thought could happen at the start of this week. So you've got Cordell Patterson off the NFI list. You got Dean Lowry out off the active PUP list. That leaves Cole Holcomb as the only player on the active PUP list. And as we've talked in the regular editions of the podcast, probably going to stay there, probably going to start the regular season on the reserve PUP, but we got plenty of time to figure that out. The team also had to place Braden Fehoko on the reserve injured list, stemming back from last week's looked like shoulder injury that he suffered during practice. So not great news for him. The team also waived linebacker Easton Gibbs, who had just recently joined the team. He played like 4 snaps, I think, against the Texans the other night. So he had a very short stay with the Steelers. The Steelers did sign defensive lineman Marquis Spencer and linebacker Luque Washington. And let's see, I don't know if did we get the Jalen? I think we got the Jalen Elliott stuff the other day on the last special edition of the podcast there. So I believe that brings us up to date on all the transactions as of Sunday afternoon. So why don't you fill in the blanks as far as the health of this team coming out of the preseason game and through the Sunday training camp practice?
Truly is training camp when the housekeeping takes up probably half of the episode. But yeah, there's a lot to work through for this one today in terms of what happened on the field, players practicing or not practicing, several sitting out. Keanu Benton, you got poked in the eye during Friday's game. Looked like he was wearing sunglasses. So that's logical after the injury. Probably okay overall, but may take a couple days here to rest. Roman Wilson continues to walk around fine with that left ankle sprain, recovering. Not really seeing him do much on the side that would really ramp up and get close to a return. Doubt he comes back for training camp, but in a decent place overall. Troy Fautanu had an MCL knee sprain in that preseason game. Did not even see him, but Tomlin's optimistic it's a short-term thing. Dante Jackson, I guess that was rest according to Tomlin, but he did not practice today. DeMar Leal also did not practice today. Something minor going on there. Alex Highsmith continues to miss with that groin injury. Patterson and Lowry, as you said, they were limited. They went to individual work, did not work in team period. They got some conditioning work on the side during those sessions. And Spencer and Washington worked in full mid-practice per Tomlin. Tariq Black, the wide receiver, hamstring injury. Don't know if it's going to be a waived injured situation there. Not much margin for error for Black. And then Kalen Barnes had a quad. I saw him trying to battle through it in practice during that first team period. He was not moving around well, tried to push through, but obviously could not. So we'll see what his status is going forward. But that's a guy that cannot really afford to miss much time.
Absolutely. So we might be set up to recap a few more transactions tomorrow afternoon tomorrow evening when we do this. We'll have to see. They worked out.
I was going to say they worked out tackles, but go ahead.
Yeah. They worked out some tackles, some offensive linemen, some long snappers, and I think just recently a long list of wide receivers as well too, right? So
they're going to sign a tackle. They have an open roster spot. They need a tackle. They're going to sign one of those tackles, right. I bet.
But what I'm saying is Tariq Black might be out the door as well too there. So yeah. We'll get to tomorrow. But all right, let's start with the quarterback position. Russell Wilson starting to ramp it up even more. I think Mike Tomlin said after the game Friday night that he kind of, I guess, insinuated that we're going to see Russell Wilson in his second preseason game. How much did Russell Wilson do today, and how did he look?
It was a pretty full complement of reps. I don't have the exact charting of it, but it was what I would consider a normal amount of reps for a starting quarterback. Most of the work with the ones today. It looked good overall. 7 shots was the challenge. Still some miscommunication. There was one fade that Wilson put up for Pickens. The Pickens broke off and miscommunication. Pickens a little frustrated by it after the play, but overall, good zip on the football. An okay practice for Wilson, but making strides and progress and trying to get back in sync with the wide receivers. So it was a normal day. Even there was one where Wilson, forget the outcome, I think it was a throwaway back of the end zone, but Wilson scrambled a little bit, like actual scrambling, not just, extended play, kind of walk around, but no limitations, no concerns about that. So it really feels like he's fully back now.
All right, good. Talk to me about Justin Fields and Kyle Allen today.
Yeah, Fields had the throw of the day, a 50-yarder down the left sideline, just a great throw that Quez Watkins laid out and made the catch. I mean, it was maybe a little in front, but I mean, it was still just a really kind of money throw where only the receiver could get it away from the cornerback, and just the arm strength, and not even just the strength, which is, one of those gaudy things, but the accuracy. I think the touch and accuracy timing that Fields shows on that deep ball might sound a little hyperbolic, but I don't remember a quarterback having that kind of arm strength I've ever seen in a Steelers training camp before. Even Ben, I didn't catch Ben at the very start when his arm was probably at his best. I've been going to camp on this kind of basis since 2014, but I would say Fields better than Ben, better than Rudolph. I mean, Wilson has a good arm too, but Fields is just kind of in a class of his own.
He can sling it, can he?
Yeah, it's pretty special, the arm talent. And you see, if you can work out the bugs and the inconsistency and the mechanics, I mean, that true talent is just ridiculous.
All right, I think the talk of the kind of the day was a little bit about John Reese Plumlee, the number 4 quarterback, who I don't think played any quarterback today, did he? And, kudos to you right after they signed him as an undrafted free agent, talking about his ability to be an all-purpose athlete and even played some wide receiver. He got to do that today in practice with the lines shorter, didn't he?
He did. Really, at some point, you start calling this guy something other than quarterback. It kind of really has become Taysom Hill-like, where, yeah, he can play quarterback, but he does so much more. Special teams, we'll talk about that in the Monday show about him, returning kicks and making a tackle on the punt team, but playing wide receiver about midway through, caught 2 passes, short underneath stuff. But, he looked good. I was trying to watch him in 7-on-7, some of the team period, just to see how he moved around, and he's fluid and he's natural. He's got burst. Obviously still going to be a tough path, but just trying to find whatever path you can to increase reps, increase value on days where the quarterbacks are healthy. Russell Wilson going through, like I said, full complement of reps. There really aren't many snaps there. If even Kyle Allen didn't get a lot of time, had a 2-minute drill, but that was really about it. Fields, by the way, had a really strong 2-minute drill to put the ball in the end zone. So that was a nice showing for him to cap off his day. But yeah, Plumlee was a receiver at Ole Miss for a season and a half, but then he went back to quarterback when he transferred to Central Florida. So this is not new for him in that sense. There is a receiver background. And yeah, even before he became a Steeler, my scouting report on Plumlee pre-draft was saying this guy should be a wide receiver, not a quarterback at the NFL level. That may be his home in Pittsburgh.
All right. Much of anything to talk about the running backs with them not in pads today?
We saw some Pony. We actually literally saw Pony. I know usually we're talking about it early in camp, and then we don't talk about it until the next training camp, but they actually had some interesting concepts, some RPOs where you could have some read option stuff with Najee Harris and then Jalen Warren fast to the flat, kind of some pre-snap motion out into the flat. And so, again, will we see it regular season? I don't know, but they're messing around with it now. So that's notable. And yeah, not in pads, no tackling, can't really learn a lot. But Aaron Chamberlain showed some burst and some explosiveness that I don't know if I'd really seen quite like that before. So that caught my attention as well.
All right. How about tight end / fullback today? Probably mostly about tight ends then.
Yeah, pretty light overall in terms of what they did today. It's not Michael Pruitt. They ran a Y screen, a tight end middle screen to Pruitt that was successful, that got open for about 13, 15 yards. He's not caught a lot of passes in team, but he's been out there every day blocking. Rodney Williams is back full, hitting the blocking sled, so that shoulder's good to go. Nothing too crazy notable, though, with the tight ends today.
Rodney Williams needs to get on that horse in these final couple of weeks before cut downs, doesn't he?
It's still a battle, but he's healthy now, and that's good. At least he's back on track, not having to rehab and recover and have the minor setback he did the one day not practicing after starting to move in the right direction. But we'll talk about it more probably in the other shows, and I have my roster prediction, and you might be dropping yours soon too. I still give Pruitt the edge, but this thing's still tight.
All right, wide receiver, and after the game the other night, kind of one of the low lights was Quez Watkins back there and muffing that punt, and really didn't do much of anything offensively. I don't think too much in that game after other than that. He actually came out and had a good practice today, didn't he? And Mike Tomlin said afterwards, in essence, he better have.
He needed a good day. He had a good day. He caught a touchdown to cap off that Fields 2-minute drill, a 21-yard catch down the right seam, a little bit behind, but kind of thrown behind intentionally away from defenders that Watkins reached back for and slid to the goal line, basically a touchdown. They gave him the touchdown. So that was good. Again, had the receiving end of that 50-yard bomb that Fields threw down the left sideline. They ran an end around to Watkins today, so a little receiver run, which we've not seen much of in training camp so far. So good for him to make some catches. He has been fairly productive in camp the last week or so. I've been charting some of that with my updated camp stats. And so from a numbers standpoint, you're seeing some positivity. But yeah, the punt return experiment hopefully is put to bed.
All right. I would dare guess that Scotty Miller's ahead of Quez Watkins in roster chances at this point. What about Des Fitzpatrick?
That one's tighter. I still give the Fitzpatrick the edge because of the special teams value. We saw Fitzpatrick first team gunner in Stadium Friday. Fitzpatrick has made some plays as a receiver too. Fitzpatrick won't have the return. I was going to say return value that Watkins had, but Watkins is not showing much return value, but return capability that Watkins is supposedly capable of. But I think Fitzpatrick would have the edge because there's additional team's value as a number 5 receiver in an Arthur Smith system. You're not catching many passes. You're not seeing the field too much. And so you better bring it on teams. And Miller can do that in some return work, and Fitzpatrick can do that in some coverage work.
All right. Well, is it safe to say Quez Watkins probably had the best day out of pads for the wide receivers?
Yes, I think that's safe to say.
Okay. Probably the most notable position group in this podcast tonight, the offensive line, some moving and shaking going on.
With the Fautanu injury, you're down to 14 healthy offensive linemen. And so typically you want 15 to have your, 3 lines of 5 players. When you lose one of those guys, like you said, have to move and shake. So one of the changes was Spencer Anderson playing some usual guard spot, but also right tackle. He was splitting reps between guard and tackle today. When he would play tackle, you would see Nate Herbig come in to play second team right guard. So Anderson, a tackle, played everywhere in college, played a lot of tackle, played tackle a lot last year as a rookie in training camp, played all 5 spots. And so he's back out to tackle with that versatility that he has, which I think is going to be his calling card to really work his way onto the roster. He's trending in that direction right now. Then, of course, people wanted it. People wondered what had happened after the exchange issues between Herbig and Fields in that game Friday. Zach Frazier, first time getting some first team center work. Now, Herbig still ran ahead of Frazier throughout practice. Based on my charting, my play-by-play, Frazier would come in and get 1 rep with the first team in those team periods. He would get that last 4th rep with the ones. Herbig would come out. And so it was not a ton of time, but it was some time for the first time. And that is certainly a notable storyline.
All right. Any other shakeups on the offensive line? Also, I thought, we'll talk about this on the Monday podcast. I thought Frazier represented himself really well in that preseason game. I won't be shocked to see him get some first team reps here in this next preseason game.
Yeah, that's certainly possible. And I assume we'll see Frazier continue to get first team work throughout these final 2 camp practices. That's the bulk of the moving and shaking. Like I said, Herbig was getting his first team center work and then some second team right guard work, obviously kind of classically a guard more so than a center throughout his entire career. Roderick Jones would come in and still play some second team right tackle. First team O-line still status quo.
All right. What about defensive line? Alex, flip over to the other side.
D-line, not a ton to note today. I mean, again, line's a little bit thinner. Hayward kind of he worked, but probably half day for him. Some new people coming in, Spencer, Benton not working, those types of things. Really don't have a whole lot to note in terms of, who really stuck out today. But Logan Lee moving up and down the line, he's gotten some versatility. Without, Leal, don't have any notes on him besides not practicing today, and no real standout for Mon Adams, but he's had a really good camp, and we saw that, inside a stadium on Friday night.
All right, let's lump all the inside and outside linebackers together. We'll be talking a lot more about them in the Monday morning podcast coming out of the game. But anything notable that you saw as far as the practice today about either one of those 2 position groups?
Active days for Landon Roberts and Mark Robinson. They were around the ball a ton. I thought Robinson had a really good read and diagnose on I think it was a read option that Fields had out to the side. And Robinson took a good angle and really chased Fields well. And that's obviously a guy with a ton of speed, more athletic than Robinson, but Robinson was able to key it and take a good approach in playing inside out against him. And then Jeremiah Moon loves that spin move. He's shown that in camp, mentioned it a time or 2, but had a really good inside spin on Dylan Cook in one of those team periods and one of those reps today. So Moon's a guy. A lot of these backers love the inside spin. I think they learned it from Highsmith partially. It's
Herbig tried it on that Montravius Adams sack. He did. Yeah, I think he lost his footing, slipped or whatnot, but he's working on it.
Yeah, Herbig's working on it. Moon has it. Highsmith is one of the best in football. So a lot of those guys can do that. Watt is like one of the few guys that doesn't really do the spin. Occasionally, maybe he tries it, but he's not really his go-to. But Pittsburgh probably has the best collection of spin move edge rushers in football.
All right, and Patrick Queen back, right?
Yeah, Queen was back in full. It was Queen and Roberts. Queen and Roberts are really good friends. They're always together before practice, always hanging out. Peyton Wilson also rotating in with Roberts in the first team. So we're seeing those guys rotate in and Wilson getting first team snaps.
All right. Some developments a little bit at the cornerback lines.
Yeah, corner was interesting today with Jackson held out. Seems minor. I think Tomlin talked about him being just some rest, but Jackson came out late in practice, and so there's probably something minor there, but I think it is just that minor. Corey Trice Jr. getting first-team right cornerback reps today, jumping guys like Darius Rush, and so that was good to see Trice. He's really elevated his reps and gotten more and more meaningful work throughout training camp, so that is notable. And then as much as we've talked about Beanie Bishop in the slot, and he's the guy, I've had a little bit of pause with that because I wanted to see more actual play out of Bishop, although he'd been running first-team slot corner. I didn't have a great evaluation of his game. There was certainly some good, but not like, okay, this guy's 100% slot corner. Graylin Arnold ran first-team slot corner today. Beanie Bishop was second-team slot corner. And so Arnold was a guy that has had some good practices when healthy, missed a couple of days, was working his way back. I think it's fluid right now in terms of that slot corner. Bishop probably still the leader in the clubhouse, but this thing's not over. There's Arnold. Thomas Graham Jr.'s had a really good camp. He's got 2 interceptions throughout camp, had a good breakup down the left sideline against Deuce Watts today on a throw from Russell Wilson. Graham playing some outside corner. He's a guy that can play inside or outside. That's a position group to watch probably until the very end.
Is it still somewhat plausible this team goes outside and gets a slot near cut downs?
It is plausible. I think that's less likely. Where I think you really could see the outsider come in, it's one of those backup outside corner spots because you have Porter and Jackson, they're locked in. Trice has got a good chance to make it. I see him getting those first team reps today. But even then, you don't know a ton about Trice, still working on getting to know him, missing his entire rookie season. The work in his game, I'm sure he needs. And then outside of that, you're comfortable with any guy. Rush can play on teams, but he's fallen back throughout training camp. Anthony Averett, probably not going to be a guy you put on the 53. Kalen Barnes, same thing there. So I think when you talk about the outsider at corner, I think it might be the literal outside at corner, outside cornerback as depth more so than slot.
All right, probably not a lot to discuss about the safety position today, I wouldn't think, right?
Yeah, there really never is because it's the same veterans that we know and are generally established in Minka, who worked in team today, and Elliott blitz some. And so we're seeing Elliott play in the box a lot, which is good to see. And Casey and Killebrew had a good breakup on Des Fitzpatrick today. And Ryan Watts has really impressed me throughout. It's been a quiet, good training camp for Watts, where it's not maybe the headline story, but Watts seems to have good practices, be around the ball. He tackled well inside the game against Houston. So that's a guy that, I think has really done well to make that transition from corner to safety for a late round pick.
He just got to learn the game more from that vantage point, probably.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot to learn just for even if he was staying at corner, a lot to learn as a late round guy that, had some technique things to work on and was probably not a totally refined product coming out of college, regardless of the position he was playing. But the traits are there for Ryan Watts.
All right. You got anything on special teams today?
Nah, not much. They did some kickoffs. Same guys back there, different combinations, Plumlee and Ward and P. Ryan. Nothing, Dejon Edwards, but nothing too crazy there.
All right. I think that's got you got any main takeaways today, and you expected them back in pads on Monday?
That would seem reasonable. 7 shots, defense dominated. Some of the reps were a little hard to tell when they're not tackling. Are you in? Would they count that as a score or not? I have it 5-2 for the defense. The first play here. Fields looking for Jefferson, left corner, Trice covering, incomplete. Second one was the miscommunication between Russell Wilson and George Pickens. Third one was Warren open in the flat. Should have been a touchdown. He slipped and fell. I'll give this to the defense. Next one was a throw in the end zone for Fitzpatrick, incomplete. I think that was the one where Wilson scrambled around a little bit, and that was kind of good to see his mobility. The next one was Fields hitting Jonathan Ward in the right flat. He went into the end zone, again, non-tackling session, but the defense swarmed. I'm not counting that as a touchdown. Next one was Tariq Black, left side, incomplete, and then a defensive score, Fields hitting Scotty Miller on a speed out to the right side against Darius Rush.
All right. I think that's got us recap for Sunday, does it?
Yeah, I think we're good. Be back out there Monday, off Tuesday, and the final practice will be on Wednesday.
All right, we're going to make this a little bit shorter tonight. Alex and I are about to turn around here in a little bit and start recording the Monday regular edition of the Terrible Podcast. So with that, as always, you can follow me on Twitter /X at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate, SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button and hit the ad-free button and follow the directions that way. So until next time, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast, another special edition of the Terrible Podcast, Pittsburgh Steelers Training Camp 2024 with Dave and Alex.